Okay, it's been so long since I've recorded something that I actually couldn't find my camera. So here I am again, recording on my phone. Hey friends, my name is Gabrielle and welcome to FrumiousReads. And today I am giving you what to read if you loved The Last of Us or even liked The Last of Us. Um, so like many people right now, I'm kind of on a Last of Us high. I honestly, I knew about the game and I've definitely watched gameplay of people playing it when it first came out, but I'd never actually played through it myself. I knew the basics of it. It was another zombie apocalypse type game. But it wasn't until I started watching the show because one, I love Pedro Pascal, and two, Bella Ramsey is amazing, that I realized the show is actually it's so different from your typical zombie apocalypse. Right? So I watched the full season and it actually motivated me in a way to give some recommendations for if you're looking for more things like The Last of Us. Like I said, it's been a while since I made a video and this was the first time I felt really motivated to make a video. So thank you, The Last of Us, for giving me that motivation back. And I figured I'd give you some what to read recommendations if you are also interested in The Last of Us like I am and are looking for something to kind of fill the gap until season 2, which I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch season 2. For those of you, if you know, the girls who get it, get it. What's going to happen in season 2, if they stick with the same storyline, which it sounds like they are, I think it will just completely break me as a person. And so part of me is like, yeah, I'm gonna leave off at season 1, not invest myself in season 2, and not get, completely destroyed, and really just embrace that Ellie and Joel made it to Jackson and they've officially solidified their father-daughter relationship and they're both going to live a happy rest of their lives. And that's it. So, if you're like me and you're like, I want something else to fill the void until I can brave myself to season 2, then here's some recommendations for you. So the first thing I'm recommending is actually a series, right? So I've actually recommended this series a lot before. I think it's a really well done and interesting take on the zombie apocalypse genre. Not necessarily because it does the whole zombie thing so differently, but just because the perspectives of society being rebuilt and the political aspect and just kind of the day-to-day living aspect is really well done. I like that part a lot. It's not so much set in the we have to survive this scenario. It's more set in the, okay, the world has kind of moved on and this is how we're coping with this now type of scenario. That is going to be Feed series by Mira Grant. It's a 3-book series. It's got Feed, Deadline, and Blackout. Personally, my favorite is Feed. I feel like the first novel was the best in the entire series, and honestly, I feel like if you don't want to jump into a series, you can just read this and really be kind of excited and satisfied. The basic summary of this is that there are 2 siblings, Georgia and Sean, who are living in this post-zombie apocalypse world, but everything else is very hand-wavy science, so just ignore that part. But the actual story between Georgia and Sean, they are journalists in this modern-day era. They are working on this campaign loop with a presidential candidate, and while they're doing that, there's kind of political machinations behind the scenes that has to do with releasing information to the public about the zombies and how the government wants to run things in the future. It's very interesting. It's got a lot of political intrigue throughout the entire series, throughout its books 1, 2, and 3, but I think my favorite is the first one just because it's really well done. It really brings in a new way to tell the story, and I just really loved all the characters in it. So yeah, first one is Feed, second one is Deadline, and the last one is Blackout. And while the whole series is really good, the first one is my favorite. The next one I'm bringing to you is just a good old zombie book, and that is Flesh Eaters by Joe McKinney. Now, Flesh Eaters is just your typical zombie book. It's if you're craving more of the everyday genre of zombies. There's a plague, it gets into the water, and when there's a flood, it makes all the cemeteries have zombies, that's essentially what it is. And it's just a good zombie book. It's really just capturing that moment of oh shoot, how are we gonna survive the zombie apocalypse? Got kind of more of from a spy perspective. It focuses around Special Ops Sergeant Eleanor Norton. It's definitely just your typical surviving the zombie while also being actually prepared for a zombie apocalypse type of scenario. If you're looking for just something that's Not complicated, not taking on anything new, just a very good zombie book. Flesh Eaters, definitely recommend it. The next book I'm going to recommend is actually one where if you're interested in more of like the Last of Us concept of like a virus or a fungi, that kind of thing, being what caused the zombie apocalypse, I would definitely recommend this book because it takes a whole new look at the like how something like this would spread, how it would affect people 20 years, 30 years after a zombie apocalypse, and how people adapt to survive this, and how specifically the human race will adapt to survive. I read this book and then I saw the movie, and honestly both did a really good job of staying true to the story, so that was one of the few movie adaptations I really enjoyed. But this is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. It centers around a girl named Melanie who goes to school in a military complex but is restrained along with all of her classmates because she actually is kind of a new generation of zombie. It's really, really interesting. Like, they take the concept of like a virus or an infection or whatever and turn it kind of like how The Last of Us has, where instead of it being, you know, something that makes you sick, it's like the cordyceps. What are those called? The mushrooms or the fungi. So they take the fungi concept and it's kind of like that, but it's more of like a pollen. So it's something that gets into the air, so it's something you breathe, and not necessarily something that's like, oh, it's just spread by the bite, you know, like it's spread in the air, it's very much like the spores and the fungi and how that spreads. So it's a really interesting new take. I honestly think this is probably the closest thing to The Last of Us. I'm kind of wondering if which came first, like this or The Last of Us, because I feel like they're both very similar. Yeah, they're both very similar. And honestly, if you like The Last of Us, you probably have either read this or would love this book. So this is probably my special star recommendation and the one I'm going to end with. Those are my books I recommend if you like The Last of Us, either the TV show on HBO or the video game. Honestly, I think both are great, and that the adaptation was really well done, and it just has such amazing acting in it. I feel like it's one of the best shows I've seen on television in a long time. And I am not like a horror person. Like, I don't like reading like scary story stuff. I'm totally fine with true crime, but something about like the supernatural aspects of scary stories, I hate that. So, but The Last of Us was one I could get into because of just how well the story's told, how fantastic the acting is, just the way they tackle everything, the diversity presented. It's just such a great show. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it yet. And if you haven't seen it and don't really care for it, that's fine. Here's some great books that you'd probably like anyway, if you're into that genre. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching this, and if you've been with me for a while, then I appreciate you just sticking around and hanging out with me, even if I don't post for months on end. I hope you guys like these books. If you have read the books, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you haven't, let me know which one you think is the most interesting, and I'd love to talk to you guys about it. So feel free to interact in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're interested in hearing more of my bookish thoughts. Yeah, follow me on other areas if you are interested in true crime. I have a podcast which will be coming out with a new episode this upcoming week because I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things. The podcast is centers around women in history known for mayhem and murder, and it's called A Murderous Affair. And you can find it basically anywhere you stream podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Libsyn, Amazon, all of them. And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, basically any form of social media at FrumiousReads. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye. And now it's time for the thumbnail. Let me do that. I hate posing for thumbnails because I never like how they turn out.